Assalamu alaikum. In the previous video, we just discussed about the development of the ovary, and now we will discuss about the development of the uterus and vagina. I will be showing some pictures here, and I will be highlighting a few of the important structures that are of your concern. Right? Just look at those pictures. Like in the previous video, I have explained this picture a lot. I had showed you about the. I had told you about this hindcut, and I also told you that in this cross sectional view of the posterior abdominal wall, here this is the hindgut, right? And this is what this is cloaca. I just told you, I just highlighted this cloaca in the previous video. So this is the cloaca. If you just put the embryo up or lift the embryo up, आप उसको ऊपर उठाओ एंड जस्ट लुक एट इट्स बॉटम, और उसको नीचे से देखो, ठीक है? एम्ब्रियो को ऊपर उठा लो, उसको नीचे से बॉटम से देखो, तो आपको जो पहला स्ट्रक्चर, द फर्स्ट स्ट्रक्चर यू विल सी इज जस्ट दिस क्लोइका. रिमेंबर, दिस इज क्लोइका. लेट मी शो यू अनदर पिक्चर. Look at this picture. This is a picture of frog. I know, but just for your memory, just for your concept, I had added this picture. Here you can see that just suppose this is the frog, but this is the embryo, right? And just you lift this embryo or frog up and look at its bottom. The structure you will see is cloaca. This is another picture. Here you can see this is the cloaca, right? And it is covered by what? It is covered by this cloacal membrane. Okay, it has also got some functions. I will discuss it in the later portion. Okay, just see that this was the cloaca. Initially it was the cloaca, but later on this cloaca, suppose this is cloaca, but later on what happened, it has been now divided into two portions, right? Our septum has been formed, which has divided this one cloaca into two portions. A septum has been formed which has divided this cloaca into two portions. You can see that this portion is that urogenital sinus, and this is what behind it, behind the septum there is rectum, right? It is the primitive rectum, and it will later on develop into the future rectum. Okay, and after that, this urogenital sinus doesn't remain as it is. It also divides into two portions, right? One portion forms the urinary bladder, and the remaining portion forms what? It just forms the upper portion of the vagina. Remember it. It also forms the upper portion. You can say that upper one third of the vagina is formed by this urogenital sinus. And I will tell you that lower two third portion is formed by which structure. You can see from here, this is a zoomed out picture. I have explained it very well, and you can also see from here that this cloacal membrane, right? This was the cloaca, and it was covered by this cloacal membrane. And when cloaca is divided, remember that that membrane has also been divided into two structures now, right? That was cloaca, and that was covered by a membrane. But now when cloaca divided by a septum, that membrane also divided into two portions, an anterior portion and a posterior portion, right? I will explain their functions. This cloaca is mainly covered by the cloacal membrane, but when it divided, it has now covered by two membranes, right? It has divided into two portions. One is the urogenital sinus here, and the other one is what? Rectum. And this urogenital sinus is covered by a separate membrane now, and this rectum is covered by a separate membrane now. I am considering here that this cloacas concept has been clear now. Okay, I have shown you in the previous video. If you have watched that video, I have told you about this structure. Okay, cross sectional view of the posterior abdominal wall. I had just shown you that genital ridge, right? I have told you about the development of the ovaries. Now just to remember that, let me draw a picture for you. Just to look at this, that this is the mesonephros, right? This is the mesonephros here, and after that, there on its medial side there is a genital ridge. There is a swelling on the medial side of the mesonephros, and that is genital ridge. Okay, and on the lateral side here are Wolffian ducts. Remember, here are what? Here are some some not, here are two Wolffian ducts, or we also call it as mesonephric ducts. And just lateral to it, here are some other structures, or here are some other ducts which are parallel to these mesonephric ducts, and these ducts are paramesonephric ducts. Remember, these ducts are what? These are paramesonephric ducts, right? They just run along with these mesonephric ducts, and after that they come medial to these mesonephric ducts, and they join in the midline here. And after that, below it is the urogenital sinus. I have shown you in the previous picture these mesonephric ducts in red color. These mesonephric ducts, when joined medially after crossing the mesonephric ducts, they just end up in the posterior wall of this urogenital sinus shown in green color, and here they form a swelling that is called genital tubercle in its posterior wall, in the posterior wall of the urogenital sinus. Now just consider, now as we are discussing the female reproductive tract here mainly, so these mesonephric duct or Wolffian ducts are present in males, and they are responsible for formation of the male reproductive structures like seminal vesicles, epididymis, and vas deferens, right? So as there is nothing to do with mesonephric ducts or Wolffian ducts in females, so in females this mesonephric duct just degenerates, okay, and its remnants are left over. They just left behind, and I will tell it to you that what is the fate of these mesonephric duct remnants. Now just consider these paramesonephric ducts in females. These paramesonephric ducts are mainly shown in red color, and these are responsible for the formation of the female reproductive structures like uterus and vagina. When they join medially, they in the distal segment, they just join together to form the uterus. This portion will form what? It will form the uterus, right? Initially it is not canalized, but later on it will also canalize, right? As you know that in the uterus there is a cavity present, and these portions, like here, these portions just form the fimbriated ends of the fallopian tubes, and these portions form the fallopian tubes, right? They form the, here forms the fimbriated ends of the fallopian tubes, and they themselves form the fallopian tubes. Okay, one more thing here, that not only uterus is formed, right? Not only uterus is formed from this portion of the paired paramesonephric ducts, right? It also forms cervix. Remember, it also forms what? It also forms the cervix, and upper one third of vagina is also formed by this particular portion. So remember that these paramesonephric ducts extend, just they extend, and they fuse in the midline distally, right? They just started from here, and then they just extend parallel to the mesonephric ducts, and after that in the distal portion they just joined in the midline, and they formed what? They formed three structures: the uterus, okay, cervix, and upper one third of the vagina. And these are the caudal portions of the paramesonephric ducts, and these are unpaired, though they are paired but they are not fused. We can say that they are paired but they are not fused. Caudal unfused portions form the fimbriated ends and fallopian tubes. I hope so this will be clear now. Okay, now there is one portion remained that I have told you, that proximal or upper one third of the vagina is formed by the paramesonephric ducts, or we also call them Mullerian ducts. But what about the remaining or lower portion of the vagina? The lower portion or distal portion of the vagina is actually formed from the sinovaginal bulb. Like I have shown you in the picture, previous picture, urogenital sinus. You just remember that urogenital sinus, right? And the distal vagina is formed from the sinovaginal bulb. Actually, there is a solid evagination of this urogenital sinus, and that solid evagination just grow up and up until it meets the distal portion of that paramesonephric ducts, which just form the uterus and upper one third of the vagina. These both structures meet, and it then forms the lower portion or distal portion of the vagina. This is another picture. Here you can see clearly, I have shown you that this is what? This is the gonads, either ovaries or testes in males, as we are concerned with the females. So these are the ovaries, and in pink color these are the Mullerian ducts, and in light blue color these are the in light blue color these are the Wolffian ducts. So what happens that gonads are now converted into the primordial ovaries, right? And the Mullerian ducts are just fused in the midline, right? And these Wolffian ducts are degenerated and they are converted into mm, apo, para, apoophrone, paraophrone, and Gardner's ducts, etc. And after that, what has happened, that the distal portion has been fused, distal portion of the paramesonephric ducts has been fused and it has formed the uterus, and the upper unfused portions has formed the fallopian tubes. I hope so this will be clear now. Thank you very much.